What if the next global sprint superstar isn't coming from Jamaica or the United States, but from a teenager who, just a few years ago, was racing in ordinary school shoes on a track in Australia? It sounds almost impossible. Yet that's exactly why the entire athletics world has been paying attention to one name, Gout Gout. At just 18 years old, he shattered a 56-year-old national record that many believed would never fall. Then he did something even more astonishing. He ran the 200 meters faster than Usain Bolt ever did as a teenager. Suddenly, headlines exploded. Fans couldn't believe the stopwatch. Coaches started asking serious questions. And social media was flooded with one debate that refused to disappear. Is Gout Gout really the next Usain Bolt, or are expectations rising far too quickly? But the record wasn't the only story. Almost immediately, critics began questioning his performance. Some dismissed it as a one-time performance. Others argued that he still had everything to prove outside Australia. While supporters celebrated a once-in-a-generation talent, skeptics insisted the real test had not even begun. So who is Gout Gout, really? How did the son of South Sudanese refugees rise from a quiet childhood in Australia to becoming one of the fastest teenagers the sport has ever seen? And can he live up to comparisons with the greatest sprinter in history? The answers reveal a story far bigger than one extraordinary race, and they may change the future of sprinting forever. Long before the world began comparing him to Usain Bolt, Gout Gout was simply a young boy growing up in Ipswich, Queensland, with a story that was already extraordinary long before he ever stepped onto a running track. Born on December 29, 2007, Gout is the son of South Sudanese parents who fled the horrors of war in search of safety and a better future. Before eventually settling in Australia, the family spent years in Egypt as refugees, carrying little more than hope that the next chapter of their lives would be different. Like many immigrant families, success wasn't guaranteed. Every opportunity had to be earned through sacrifice, resilience, and hard work. Growing up in a household with 7 children, life wasn't centered around elite sports or expensive training programs. There was no carefully designed plan to create a future Olympic sprinter. Running wasn't even the family's primary focus. Like countless children across Australia, Gout simply enjoyed school, spending time with friends, and trying different activities. Then one unexpected opportunity changed everything. While attending school, an opening appeared on the athletics team. It wasn't part of some grand master plan. Someone needed to fill the spot, and Gout stepped forward. At the time, nobody could have imagined that such a simple decision would begin one of the most exciting journeys in modern track and field. The first race surprised everyone. Unlike many of his competitors, Gout didn't arrive wearing professional sprint spikes or carrying years of competitive experience. He reportedly raced in ordinary running shoes while several of the other athletes already looked like experienced sprinters. But once the starting gun fired, appearances no longer mattered. Within seconds, people watching realized they were seeing something unusual. He crossed the finish line ahead of everyone else. Teachers looked at one another. Coaches stopped talking. Parents in the crowd turned their attention toward the quiet teenager who had just outrun athletes with far more experience. But perhaps the most remarkable part wasn't the victory itself. It was that Gout didn't immediately believe he was special. Like many young athletes, talent alone wasn't enough to convince him that he belonged among the best. He still needed someone to recognize what he couldn't yet see in himself. That person was Coach Diane Shepherd. Interestingly, she wasn't a famous sprint coach with decades of international experience. In fact, her journey into coaching came through school athletics. But from the very first time she watched Gout run, she saw something that others had only begun to notice. She believed he possessed rare natural ability. According to Gout, one conversation changed the way he viewed his future. His coach looked at him and delivered a message that was both simple and powerful. "You could be great." Those 4 words became much more than encouragement. They became belief. For the first time, someone had planted the idea that his speed wasn't just impressive for school competitions, it could eventually compete on much bigger stages. From that moment, improvement came quickly. Each season brought faster times. Each race attracted more attention. Instead of treating sprinting as just another school activity, Gout began developing the habits required of serious athletes. Training became more focused. Technique became more refined. Confidence slowly replaced uncertainty. The results spoke for themselves. By the age of just 14, he had already recorded one of the fastest 100-meter times ever run by an Australian under-16 athlete. A year later, he continued rewriting youth records, proving that his earlier performances were no accident. Still, records alone weren't what impressed coaches the most. They admired how quickly he learned. His running mechanics continued improving. His starts became sharper. His finishing speed became even more dangerous. Most importantly, he never seemed satisfied with yesterday's success. Every race became another opportunity to grow. As news of his performances spread, comparisons naturally began appearing across Australian athletics. Some observers praised his explosive stride. Others pointed to his remarkable composure for someone so young. But experienced coaches also understood something important. Junior success doesn't always guarantee greatness. History is full of teenage stars who struggled after reaching the senior level. Stronger competition, international travel, bigger crowds, and higher expectations have ended countless promising careers before they truly began. Gout still had major obstacles ahead. He would eventually need to prove himself against the fastest men in the world, not just the fastest teenagers. That challenge remained in the distance. But before anyone started talking about Olympic medals or world records, another historic moment was waiting. A record that had survived for more than half a century. A performance that would force the entire athletics world to pay attention. And once that race was over, people wouldn't simply be asking whether Gout Gout was Australia's next sprint star. They would begin asking something much bigger. Could this teenager actually become the next Usain Bolt? Then came the race that changed everything. In November 2024, Gout Gout stepped onto the track with confidence, but few people expected history to be made. Australia had produced talented sprinters before, yet one record had stood untouched for 56 years. It belonged to Olympic silver medalist Peter Norman, whose legendary 200-meter performance at the 1968 Mexico City Olympics had survived generation after generation of challengers. Many believed it would remain untouchable. Then Gout exploded out of the blocks. With every stride, it became clear that something extraordinary was unfolding. As he crossed the finish line, the clock stopped at 20.04 seconds, making him the fastest Australian ever over the distance and ending a record that had lasted more than half a century. Almost overnight, the athletics world had a new sensation. The performance quickly spread across social media. Highlight clips reached millions of viewers. Fans couldn't stop talking about the teenager with the smooth running style and seemingly endless potential. Even some of the biggest names in track and field began paying attention. Among them was Usain Bolt himself. After watching the race, Bolt reportedly reached out to congratulate the young Australian and remarked that Gout reminded him of a younger version of himself. For any teenage sprinter, there could hardly be greater recognition than receiving encouragement from the fastest man in history. But Gout wasn't interested in living off one unforgettable race. He wanted more. Soon afterward, he signed with Adidas, joining the same global brand that sponsors many of the world's elite sprinters. It was another sign that people inside the sport believed his future could be something special. Then came another important opportunity. He traveled to the United States to train alongside world-class athletes and experienced coaches. For the first time, he was surrounded every day by competitors who had already reached the highest level of international sprinting. The experience changed him. Training sessions became more demanding. His technique became more refined. He began learning the tiny details that separate great sprinters from world champions: reaction time, acceleration, relaxation under pressure, and maintaining speed through the final meters. When he returned to Australia, he looked like a different athlete. Months later, at the Australian Championships, Gout lined up knowing exactly what he wanted. Before the race, he reportedly typed a single number into his phone's notes app. 19.75. It wasn't a prediction. It was a target. When the gun fired, he attacked the race with complete confidence. His transition through the curve looked effortless, and his top-end speed separated him from the field. As he crossed the finish line, the scoreboard revealed an astonishing time of 19.67 seconds under legal wind conditions. History had been rewritten again. The performance made Gout the first Australian to legally break the 20-second barrier in the 200 meters and also broke the world under 20 record. Even more remarkable, the time was faster than Usain Bolt had ever run before turning 20 years old. That single statistic fueled an entirely new conversation. Could this teenager truly become the sport's next global superstar? Not everyone agreed. As often happens with extraordinary performances, skepticism appeared almost immediately. Some critics questioned whether such a dramatic improvement was believable, while social media became flooded with debates over the legitimacy of the performance. However, officials confirmed that the race was conducted under standard competition rules, with legal wind readings and certified electronic timing. Most respected analysts focused on a more balanced question. The real issue wasn't whether the time counted. It did. The bigger question was whether Gout could reproduce those performances consistently against the world's fastest senior athletes. That challenge would define the next chapter of his career. Because breaking records at home earns attention. But proving yourself on the biggest international stage is what creates legends. And that moment was approaching faster than anyone imagined. Breaking records is one thing. Living up to them is something completely different. After Gout's incredible performances captured global attention, the conversation began to change. People were no longer asking whether he was talented. That question had already been answered. Instead, the focus shifted to something much bigger. Can he do it against the world's very best? History shows that many teenage sprint stars shine brightly before struggling on the senior stage. The jump from junior competitions to racing Olympic and World Championship medalists is enormous. Every athlete is faster. Every mistake is punished. And every race comes with pressure that can't be recreated in training. That is the challenge waiting for Gout. Some respected voices in the sport have pointed out that his biggest test is no longer running fast in Australia. The next step is proving he can produce those same performances against elite international competition. It's a fair question, not because anyone doubts his talent, but because every great sprinter has eventually faced that same challenge. Gout has already experienced how difficult international racing can be. Competing against the world's strongest field requires more than raw speed. It demands experience, race management, mental strength, and the ability to stay composed under enormous expectations. Those lessons can't be learned overnight. But perhaps the most impressive part of Gout's journey isn't his speed. It's his attitude. When criticism appeared online after his record-breaking run, he didn't respond with anger or excuses. Instead, he remained calm, saying that there will always be critics and that their opinions only motivate him to keep improving. That response revealed a level of maturity rarely seen in athletes his age. Rather than becoming distracted by debates on social media, he returned to what had brought him success in the first place: training, learning, and racing. For many coaches, that's an encouraging sign. Talent may open the door, but discipline determines how long an athlete stays at the top. Every season now carries greater expectations. Every race attracts larger crowds. Every performance is compared to the greatest sprinters in history. That kind of pressure has ended promising careers before they truly began. Yet Gout appears determined to embrace it rather than fear it. The next stage of his development could define an entire generation of sprinting. Elite competitions such as the Prefontaine Classic and future World Championships will give him opportunities to race Olympic medalists and established global stars. Those events will provide the answers that statistics alone cannot. Can he handle the pressure? Can he consistently perform against world-class fields? Can he continue improving as his body matures and his experience grows? No stopwatch can answer those questions in advance. Only competition can. Looking further ahead, another dream sits on the horizon. The 2032 Olympic Games in Brisbane. For Australia, it represents one of the biggest sporting events in the nation's history. For Gout, it could become something even more personal. Imagine standing inside a packed Olympic stadium in your home country. Millions of Australians watching. The world expecting greatness. For any athlete, moments like that define careers. By then, Gout should be entering the years that are often considered a sprinter's physical prime. If his current progress continues, he could arrive not simply as Australia's biggest sprint hope, but as one of the favorites to challenge for global medals. Of course, the future is never guaranteed. Injuries happen. Competition becomes stronger. New stars emerge every season. That's the reality of elite sport. But regardless of what happens next, Gout Gout has already achieved something remarkable. He has inspired a new generation of young athletes to believe that world-class talent can emerge from anywhere. His story reminds us that greatness isn't limited by where you're born or how famous you are when you start. Sometimes, it begins with an unexpected opportunity. A teenager wearing ordinary running shoes. A coach who believed before anyone else did. A family that sacrificed everything for a better future. And a young athlete who refused to place limits on what was possible. So, is Gout Gout truly the next Usain Bolt? Only time will answer that question. But perhaps that's the wrong question to ask. Because the greatest athletes don't spend their careers becoming the next version of someone else. They become the first version of themselves. And judging by everything we've seen so far, Gout Gout's story is only just beginning. Gout Gout's journey is about much more than breaking records. It's about resilience, belief, and proving that extraordinary talent can come from the most unexpected places. From a young boy growing up in Australia to becoming one of the fastest teenagers the world has ever seen, his story is only beginning. Now we'd love to hear from you. Do you believe Gout Gout has what it takes to become the next global sprint superstar? And more importantly, can he one day match, or even surpass, the incredible legacy of Usain Bolt on the world's biggest stage? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to know where you stand in this exciting debate. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the biggest stories in sports. Every like, comment, and subscription helps us continue bringing you original, fact-based documentaries. Thanks for watching, and remember, today's rising star could become tomorrow's sporting legend. We'll see you in the